Alright, drawing yet another thing to shoot with. We'll see how this goes. I do have a bit of an idea, but I don't know what the shape is that I have to draw within. So, oh, that apparently, also no music. Wow, that's a surprisingly just like kind of realistic looking fire. Some music. Do you want toy gun or gun? Basically. I do appreciate they just give you like a space to draw stuff in as opposed to the first game where they tried to guide you a bit more. It is a bit, it's a bit difficult to work with if you want that kind of, I don't know, nudging a certain direction. But let me pull up a reference real quick because I have an idea. And I can actually just draw the thing to, I'm not trying to point at the screen right now, but anyways, I can just draw it to the best of my ability since there's nothing in the way, like shape-wise. So give me a second. Now mind you, I also have no idea what the projectiles are going to look like, but let's see what we can do here. I do have a pretty good reference picture of this. I also don't know how this is going to be held. I can kind of take a hint from the templates. Yeah, it'll be held somewhere around the bottom left. Okay. Fortunately, this isn't going to be super colorful. It's going to be a lot of shades of gray. In reality, it's kind of a, I feel like it has a slightly bluish tint to it. Actually, not as much as this template does, but it is there. Oh boy. But let's see what I can do here. This is really awkward with no music, but such is life. I'm not going to make any big promises about getting the proportions correct, because that just takes a decent amount of planning and thought and trial and error, if nothing else. And I do not have a lot of time and so on to work with here. See if we can get the skeleton of this thing working first. Very vague with the shape here, but this isn't a particularly important part of its shape anyways. The whole thing is kind of one color, but then it has like depth to it and so on. Oh boy, I'm not even going to be using most of its... Actually, shape-wise this is going to be difficult to make work. Because the thing is, this thing is actually taller than it is wide, the thing that I'm referencing here. And I've already used like all of my height and none of the width. So I may have to detach a particular part of it. Or do something silly with it to change where a certain part of it is to modify its profile a bit. Is this from a game I've referenced before, drawing stuff? I just haven't... Calm down there. Just haven't referenced it for this particular thing yet. Slightly surprised I hadn't, that I never thought of it before, because, one, I thought of it really quickly this time, and the handle is way bigger than it needs to be compared to the rest of the stuff right now. But, oh well. Again, I won't stress the proportions too much. Otherwise we'll just be here forever, and it'll be kind of boring as I do and read of everything over and over. I would like a little bit of roundness here. Like you're not looking at it in perfect profile, because looking at it in perfect profile would be boring. Then see if we can get the back of this thing to fit on here. Actually, take a tiered approach here, out of order a little bit. I'll do that first. And now... Okay. So... that's much of the shape of this thing. Minus 2 bits. 1 bit is what I'm going to draw here. And the other bit, I'll have to either leave out or creatively reinterpret in another location. I feel like this game is for people who think that drawing stuff already isn't painstaking enough. Okay. So like I said, I'm really just going for the shape here right now. But going for the finer details will also be a little tricky. Because... Oh. Because in reality, every part of this thing is basically the same shape, and then looking at the thing in the game, looking at it, I have a pretty close-up look of the actual in-game model of the thing. And what I'm looking at leads me to think, I was thinking, and this was still, by the time this was released, like, people would start using bump maps and stuff like that, I believe. We had that technology by then. But it doesn't look like they used one. It looks like they just used a straight texture to give the idea of finer details, like parts that slightly stick out or not. It's kind of funny to even know what things like bump maps and so on are, considering that basically anything that has those things in them aren't things that I play, because I basically exclusively play things from before. Those are widely used. Like, and you're not going to see much bump mapping or anything similar on a Wii title, I don't think. Unless it's that one random semi-truck racing game that has ridiculous graphical fidelity with, like, full reflections and so on. But that's not a game that I play. Ah! Even just filling this in is kind of painstaking, jeez. But, I mostly play older things, and of the newer things that I play, it ends up being stuff like Mad Red Dead and so on that still ends up having lower fidelity, graphically. Not so much because I prefer lower fidelity, but more because, I think there's a negative correlation between things having super high... Well, there's a negative correlation between something having a lot of money put into it and me liking it. That's not to say that I don't appreciate higher production values, it's just that people tend not to want to put a lot of money into it and give high production values to the sorts of things that I like. I don't like how this looks here, because this is uneven. Shouldn't get too bogged down in the details here. Okay. So, speaking of details, how do we accomplish what we're doing right now? What it is that we want to accomplish? So I have some fairly subtle lighting to do on here. That's going to be the name of the game. I think I should zoom in a bit more on my reference here. Try to get a closer look at some parts of this thing. Nope. The challenges of window management. Okay. At least the parts that I want to see here. Yeah, and I think that I may just leave out the one part that doesn't fit on you, and that's probably the most recognizable part of what I'm going to draw, or what I'm trying to draw right now. I am tempted to try to thin out this handle a little bit, because I absolutely made it way thicker than it should be. And that's been bugging me a whole lot. Great effort at going diagonally bomb to the right there. Okay, this is long past the point of being amusing. So no, I can't have a circular soft eraser. Okay, come on now. Kind of like this. Something like that. like it to not be so harsh. Like anything you erase ends up looking so awful because it's so alias compared to everything else. It sticks out in ways that nothing else does. Stop being like this, technology. Okay, if we just cut out a little bit more diagonally here, we might be okay. Okay, now I don't want to be super caught up in the finer details of the shape of this thing, because I know it's just going to result in me spending an inordinate amount of time for basically no actual payoff. But I want to have some level of contentness with what I create. That's better. It's not fantastic, but better. May try to soften it up a bit. Stop, I'm not even trying to move. Yeah, I'll take that. Okay. Now, I feel like I'm going to need some really subtle shades here to do some of what I want to do. Okay, let me select the menu. Jeez. Trying to think of which part to do first, because I have a few options. And none of them sound easy, really. Because things kind of get layered on top of each other. Okay. So, let's... I have to move this slightly to the side. Alright, let's see if we can do this here. Please. Okay. So, something fairly thin here. If I do it too thin, it ends up looking super alias, which is annoying, but... something vaguely like this. I don't know if I dare look at how long this episode ends up being. I still yet to figure out what makes the sensor bar act ridiculous or not, or rather my controller's interpretation of the sensor bar. Okay, so this is me being too close apparently. Or the game just crashed or something, I don't know. I think it's more like the game crashing. No, the game's not dead. There we go. Let me fix this up. This is not ultimately a detailed thing that I'm trying to draw here. In my opinion. But it may nonetheless be too much. Okay. There we go. See if we get stuff like that a bit more often, I'd be very happy. Okay, on the other hand, so let's just start with these bits of... let's start with these ridges first. Why? I don't know what my controller is seeing that makes it do this. Like, nothing is moving. What makes it jitter so much? I'll take it, I guess. Alright, so then, starting from that, what do we do? So, This part ends up being slightly lighter than all the rest. So we'll fill this in. I think a difficulty of this game is sometimes you just don't realize how something's going to be to draw until you actually try it. For various reasons. I mean, I feel like normally I'd have some intuition for that, because there are questions like, how much detail does it have? How precisely do you have to do the shape correct to be satisfied with it, and so on. This one is a bit difficult in the sense that it does have some big round things that you'd like to get looking smooth and so on. Like these contours. Things I've been calling ridges and so on. Those have not a huge margin for error to not look awful, and they're very difficult to do decently on here. There are also little things like, okay, you have to fill certain parts in, at least if you draw the way that I'm doing it now. Which I feel like the strategy I'm taking makes sense. Okay, and then in contrast, we'll have a much darker color filling this section. Just mastering monochrome art lately in this game. Mastering is a massive exaggeration, of course, but a whole lot of drawing things in gray. I guess I can say I'm very pleased that in this game I can actually draw a whole bunch of shades of gray. That is something that I yearned for in the other games for so long. I just always wanted more shades of gray for things. So I never had enough to do sensible shading and so on. Okay. Then we have, I'd say almost an in-between kind of color to the left of this. Yeah, let's take something in between, really. Blend these two real quick. And of course I'd use the blending trick often in this, but I don't even have to do that. I actually have a lot of, I don't have to do it much. I actually have a lot of grays to work with to begin with. I don't have to exploit the game to do much, because I already have, between black, including black and white, I have like 9 different shades of gray. Alright. Okay, so there's a start there. Don't know yet if I'm doing it here is really ending up convincing in any capacity or not, but I feel like I wouldn't be satisfied to at least make an effort. This is probably too small a detail for it to be made out anywhere, unfortunately. These kinds I should probably leave out. As much as I like the thought of actually putting in some amount of detail that looks nice. Alright, so where do you want to go from here? I have a few options again. I feel like I should just do the kind of ridges and colors on everything first before doing any shading. Maybe with the exception of this part. That part I'll probably save entirely for last. But at the same time, geez, some of these parts are so messy. It is painful to not try to fix some of these up. Ugh. Okay. And below this, we do actually have two subtly different shades to work with. Well, the other one is darker, not lighter. That's the same shade. Give me this color again. Just kind of stripe this. I may feel okay about this if it at least looks decent in the end, but I have a feeling it's not going to. Instead, just a lot of awkward silence as I try to draw something. Okay. And at this point I'll do these little bits, which I don't know what you'd even call them, but there's some kind of roundish something. The bottom right corner isn't pleasing me, but I may have to leave it be. That turned out okay. Alright. This is one of those cases, I don't know how subtle I want to go with the details. So at the size I'm looking at it now, I think one of the issues is that the size, lots of things in this game, the size you draw them at and the size you see them at in a game is so different that you feel like it's worth adding details that you can see at this scale. I don't just mean zoomed in, but I mean like at this scale as well. That you can't see at actual in-game scale. So like I look at this right now and I think, oh hey, this detail I'm considering adding right now is absolutely visible on this thing, but then I go in game and you can't see anything that I just drew. Okay. And now there's the issue of trying to get a little... I might actually not do shading on this, honestly. Between, well, in the sense of like actually having like a light cast from one side, like in the top right or wherever. Because one, it would just be a pain to add at this point. But two, I feel like there's already enough detail in this thing that you won't really miss it too much. Okay. And... I feel like to make up for that, I also want to add some other detail in some other places. This is darker. Yeah, I can put those, I can actually overlay those. Nope. I guess when I say not shading it in some sense, I really just mean not shading the big round parts that have lots of details on it that would be annoying to work around. Okay. And really I just want to do the part on the right now, which is almost ready. That will have a little bit of stuff to do, but not a lot. Honestly, this part's a bit lighter than I even drew it as before. Unfortunately, most of the color in this thing, it's not entirely gray in reality. Most of the color comes from the part that I'm not drawing here, because it doesn't fit. So it comes out as a bit more drab than would normally be expected. Alright, but there is one part that is more of a neutral gray there than a light gray. Just the tip there. Which doesn't look at all how I intended for that to look, but at least communicates that it's this tip, kind of. Okay. And some slightly darker bits. And maybe in the end this is just a ridiculous amount of detail that I'm adding that isn't worthwhile. Could have just been not here to start with. But I'm trying to take some pride in what I do. And this game doesn't make that easy sometimes. Okay. And just for my own satisfaction, I want to have some ridge here. There. At that point, it's, unless I add just like a tiny bit of shadow that doesn't really serve much purpose, that's pretty much it. Oddly silly level of detail sort of thing. But this is the Paintinator from Little Big Planet. And that is the game stand-in for firearms when they decided, let's do a Metal Gear Solid DLC pack. It was one of those games that had a weird way of making lots of... It shoots something, who knows what. Let's take a game that's supposed to be for all ages and then also make DLC for something that's very much not. I found a lot of games did that in that era. Little Big Planet was one of the biggest offenders. I literally cannot get up. How do I can't flap my wings anymore. I legitimately don't know how to get out of here. I don't know what to do. And that enemy isn't coming over here either. Game? Did you forget something here, or... What is going on? Let's look how small this thing is. You can't see it in the slightest. I couldn't even tell whether I was holding it at first. Nice combination. I have wings from Link Planet and a Paint Eater front. That's an amusing combination. But like, I legitimately don't know what to do right now. Like, I can't flap my wings, so I can't go up or down. Is this enemy close enough to try to attack me? Hello? Come on. Over here. Nope. Well. That was my weird remote deciding it doesn't want to respawn again. Did they actually create a way to just soft lock yourself in this level? Stop it. From what I can tell, the answer is yes. Like, I can't flap my wings because I already exhausted the couple flaps that I have. But it doesn't bring me up to go high enough. I can hold A to glide, except that doesn't really do anything. If I do it with the right rhythm, I don't get more height. So I don't get enough to get up here. I don't want to redo this level. So I'd probably rather just reload a save state from when I started this episode and then just pretend this episode never happened and just probably skip drawing the shooter this time. I don't know how to get through here because, well, that was a bust of an episode. I'll see you tomorrow.